Have you ever felt that sudden chill on the back of your neck, as if something or someone was watching you from the shadows? Have you ever had the strange sensation of not being alone, even in an empty place? There are stories that are not told to entertain, but to warn. Stories that survive not because someone invented them, but because there are those who swear they lived every detail of them. In this video, you will learn about 3 dark tales that defy logic, test your courage, and maybe, just maybe, leave marks on your mind forever. But be careful. Once you hear these stories, there is no unhearing them. Are you ready for this? The road that cut through the countryside outside the small town was known for its deceptive tranquility. On moonless nights, when the wind howled like a hungry beast and the trees swayed in agony, the darkness became almost tangible, a suffocating presence that enveloped everything. Those who knew the area avoided this route after nightfall, but Lucas, a seasoned traveler, laughed off the warnings. He was determined to reach his destination before dawn. At the last stop, an elderly gas station attendant with tired eyes and a shaky voice told Lucas about the woman on the road. "She only appears on nights like this," he said, pointing to the starless black sky. "Dressed in white, hitchhiking. If you stop, you're never seen again." Lucas smiled skeptically. Ghost stories had always been part of local folklore, he thought, an attempt to keep people scared and obedient. He thanked the attendant and drove on, the car's engine purring softly in the darkness. As he drove on, the road seemed to stretch out endlessly before him, a river of asphalt that snaked through the void. The silence, interrupted only by the rhythmic sound of tires against the asphalt, was heavy. Lucas adjusted the radio, searching for a station that could accompany him on the journey, but all he found was static and indistinct whispers, as if the radio itself were picking up the murmurs of the night. That was when he saw her, a solitary figure at the side of the road, wrapped in a white dress that shone faintly in the darkness. Lucas felt a shiver run down his spine, but he pushed the feeling away with an impatient sigh. Just someone in need of help, he thought. He stopped the car and watched in the rearview mirror as the woman approached slowly, almost gliding across the road surface. When she opened the door and got in, the air inside the car seemed to freeze instantly. The woman didn't say a word, just pointed with a pale finger in the direction Lucas was already heading. He tried to start a conversation, but the woman remained silent, her eyes fixed on the horizon, empty and lifeless. Lucas felt a growing unease, a sense that something was terribly wrong. He tried to turn the radio back on, but now there was only static and whispers, louder and more insistent. As they drove on, the whispers became clearer, forming words that Lucas couldn't fully understand. They were ancient languages, mixed with wails and distorted laughter. The car seemed to take on a life of its own, guided by an invisible force. Lucas looked at the woman and saw that her eyes, previously empty, now glowed with a malevolent light. Her pale skin began to contort, revealing a disfigured face with eyes blazing with hatred. Lucas tried to scream, but the sound caught in his throat. The woman's hands, now claws, dug into the steering wheel, steering the car with supernatural strength. He struggled to maintain control, but it was as if his movements were being sucked into a vortex of despair. The car accelerated toward a cliff that Lucas had not noticed before, a dark abyss that seemed to call to him. In a last-ditch effort, Lucas tried to pull the steering wheel to steer the car, but the woman's claws held him tightly. He felt her strength, cold and relentless, pulling him toward the inevitable. The edge of the cliff was fast approaching, and Lucas knew there was no escape. He closed his eyes, waiting for the impact. When morning came, the car was found abandoned on the side of the road. There was no sign of Lucas, only claw marks dug into the steering wheel and a white veil on the passenger seat. Local authorities investigated, but found no clues as to Lucas's whereabouts. The gas station attendant, upon hearing the news, shook his head sadly. "The woman on the road took another one," he muttered. The road remained deserted that day, a silent reminder of the horrors that lurked there. And so the legend of the woman in white continued to grow, fueled by fear and stories of unexplained disappearances. Those who heard the story swore never to drive that road again on moonless nights, fearing they would encounter the woman on the road and her flaming gaze of hatred. Lucas became one of the many who disappeared, his story just an echo in the darkness, a warning to the unwary. And the woman in white continued to wait patiently by the side of the road, ready to claim her next victim. The old St. Margaret's School had always been shrouded in mystery. Built over a century ago, its stone walls and shadowy hallways held stories from generations past. Among these stories, the most persistent and frightening was the legend of the mirror in the girls' bathroom. According to rumors, the mirror showed something beyond its reflection, something that could forever trap the soul of anyone who dared to look into the eyes of the specter that lived within. Claire, a sophomore, was known for her insatiable curiosity and unwavering skepticism. She loved hearing scary stories, but she never believed them. Her friends, always ready to scare her, often talked about the cursed mirror. They laughed nervously as they told stories of girls who had disappeared, leaving only a faint trail of blood and scratch marks in the sink. One afternoon, as the sun was setting and orange light filtered through the school's stained glass windows, Claire heard the story of the mirror again. This time, she decided she would prove to everyone that it was nothing more than a hoax. Her friends tried to dissuade her, but Claire was determined. "I'll show you that it's just an old, dusty mirror," she said confidently. When the school clock struck midnight, Claire got out of bed, grabbed a small candle, and quietly left her room. The school was deathly silent, broken only by the sound of her footsteps echoing in the empty hallways. As she approached the girls' bathroom, she felt a shiver run down her spine, but she attributed it to the cold of the night rather than fear. The bathroom was old, with faded and cracked tiles and a large, stained mirror. Claire lit the candle and placed it on the sink, its flame flickering in the darkness. She walked over to the mirror, her own reflection staring back at her with determined eyes. Remembering the words her friends had mentioned, she began to recite them, her voice a whisper in the silence. "Spirit of the mirror, show me your face. Let me see what you hide in your well." For a moment, nothing happened. Claire smiled, ready to laugh at her friends the next morning. But then the mirror began to fog up, as if a mist were forming behind the glass. The mist thickened, twisting into shapes that seemed to want to escape the mirror. Claire's heart raced, but she didn't look away. Suddenly, a spectral figure emerged from the mist. It was a woman, her face pale and her eyes empty, bottomless. Claire felt paralyzed, as if something invisible was holding her in place. The figure in the mirror began to move, its lips forming words that Claire couldn't understand, but which seemed to echo directly in her mind. The specter's eyes locked with Claire's, and she tried to look away, but it was as if she were hypnotized. The mirror seemed to expand, the ghostly figure pulling her in. Claire tried to scream, but no sound came out of her mouth. She felt an icy cold take over her body, and her hands, now shaking, tried to grip the sink. But the specter's power was irresistible. Claire was pulled into the mirror, her vision blurring as the world around her distorted. The last thing she saw was the specter's disfigured face, a smile of triumph on its pale lips, and then everything went black. The next morning, when Claire's friends went looking for her, they found the bathroom empty. The mirror was clean with no signs of fogging. Where Claire had been standing, there were scratch marks on the sink and a faint trail of blood that mysteriously disappeared. The school fell silent, Claire's story quickly spreading and becoming yet another of St. Margaret's haunted legends. The authorities were called but found no leads. Claire's disappearance was listed as an unsolved mystery, and the girls' bathroom was locked and boarded up, its windows boarded up. Yet the girls at the school continued to whisper about the cursed mirror, and some claimed that at midnight they could still hear Claire whispering, trapped forever on the other side. As the years passed, St. Margaret's continued to welcome new generations of students. The legend of the mirror in the girls' bathroom was never forgotten. Some students, driven by curiosity or defiance, tried to repeat Claire's ritual, but all were dissuaded by their friends who remembered the tragic fate she had met. And so the mirror remained untouched, a silent portal to the unknown, hiding dark secrets and memories of stifled screams. The school, with its stone walls and shadowy hallways, remained a place of learning and mystery, where past and present intertwined in a veil of shadows and legends. But those who knew Claire's story knew that the mirror was not truly silent. Sometimes, in the stillness of the night, they could hear a faint whisper, a distant echo of a face trapped in an eternal reflection. And all knew that no matter how hard they tried to forget, the story of Claire and the cursed mirror would live forever in the memory of the school, a reminder that some legends are more than just stories. They are dark warnings to those who dare to challenge the unknown. And so St. Margaret's College remained a place of learning and mystery, where past and present intertwined in a veil of shadows and legends. The ancient hallways whispered secrets that only the most attentive could hear, and the shadows seemed to dance to the rhythm of untold stories. The mirror, with its clear and seemingly innocent surface, waited patiently for the next soul bold enough to face the unknown. The teachers and administrators of the school avoided talking about the mirror, treating it as a taboo. The younger students were warned by the seniors in hushed whispers about the dangers of venturing into the girls' bathroom at night. Some dared to approach it, but retreated when they felt the invisible oppression emanating from the place. Only once, many years later, did a new student, Rebecca, who had transferred from another city, hear Claire's story and feel a mixture of skepticism and fascination. Rebecca was a determined girl with an investigative spirit and an aversion to superstition. She listened intently to the stories her classmates told her, every detail about the mirror and Claire's disappearance. Determined to prove that it was all just an urban legend, Rebecca decided to follow in Claire's footsteps. She chose a stormy night when thunder roared and rain drummed incessantly against the school's ancient windows. With a candle in her hand and a steely determination, she made her way to the sealed-off bathroom, finding a way in despite the boards and locks. The bathroom was cold and damp, the air heavy with the smell of mold and something older and more indefinable. Rebecca lit the candle, and the flame flickered, casting dancing shadows on the faded walls. She approached the mirror, her own reflection staring back at her with defiant eyes. Without hesitation, she began to recite the words her classmates had mentioned. "Mirror spirit, show your face. Let me see what you hide in your well." The mirror responded immediately, fogging up and turning into a thick mist. The spectral figure emerged more quickly this time, as if eager to claim another victim. Rebecca felt a chill run down her spine, but she did not look away, determined not to show fear. The specter's empty eyes met Rebecca's, and she felt an invisible force trying to pull her into the mirror. She fought the sensation, but the pull was irresistible. The figure's face began to contort, taking on an expression of evil triumph. Rebecca tried to pull away, but her legs felt rooted to the spot. Suddenly, the bathroom door banged open, and a familiar figure rushed in. It was one of Claire's friends, now an older woman, who had felt a strange urge to return to school that night. Seeing Rebecca being pulled into the mirror, she ran to the girl and grabbed her by the shoulders, pulling her with all her strength. The battle was fierce, with the specter trying to pull Rebecca away and the woman struggling to save her. Finally, with one last effort, she managed to pull Rebecca away from the mirror, which immediately returned to normal, its surface smooth and harmless. Rebecca fell to the floor, shaking and breathless, while the woman hugged her, tears of relief streaming down her face. The next day, Rebecca's story spread throughout the school, and the bathroom was sealed off for good, with a clear warning to all who came after: never look in the mirror. Rebecca, though saved, was never the same again. She knew she had been one step away from a terrible fate, and that the mirror continued to wait patiently for its next victim. The legend of Claire and the cursed mirror lived on forever, a dark warning that echoed through the halls of St. Margaret's College, reminding everyone that some doors should never be opened, and some reflections should never be looked at. The forest surrounding the small town of Pinebrook was a constant, shadowy presence, an expanse of ancient trees that seemed to whisper secrets in the wind. To the locals, the forest was a place of mystery and fear, avoided by all after sunset. For decades, stories of unexplained disappearances and ominous whispers had accompanied the forest's reputation, making it a place of nightmares incarnate. Eric, an investigative journalist known for his determination to uncover the truth behind urban legends, arrived in Pinebrook with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. He had heard stories about the forest and the disappearances, but believed them to be nothing more than myths fueled by superstition. Determined to find the truth, he prepared himself for an investigation that would prove far more sinister than he could have imagined. On the morning of his investigation, the sky was gray and cloudy, as if even the weather was warning against the journey. Eric, however, was resolute. Equipped with a recorder and a camera, he walked into the forest, his footsteps crunching on the dry leaves that seemed to rustle beneath his feet. The dense vegetation quickly swallowed up the daylight, plunging him into a gloom that made every shadow seem alive and menacing. As he walked deeper into the forest, the air seemed to change, becoming heavy and oppressive. Eric felt a chill run down his spine, but he attributed it to the humid weather and his own anxiety. He turned on the recorder, documenting his observations as he went. "I'm in Pinebrook Forest, looking for clues to the mysterious disappearances that have occurred here over the past few decades," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. As he walked on, Eric began to hear whispers. At first, he thought it was just the wind playing with his imagination, but the whispers became clearer, more insistent. They were soft, almost childlike voices calling his name. "Eric, Eric." The journalist stopped, looking around, but saw nothing but twisted trees and shadows. He decided to continue, but now with a growing sense of unease. The whispers did not cease, following him like a shadow, echoing through the trees. Eric tried to ignore them, focusing on his mission. He knew something was wrong, but his determination to find the truth overcame his growing fear. Finally, after hours of walking, he found a clearing. The air seemed colder there, and an oppressive silence dominated the place. In the center of the clearing, Eric saw something that made his blood run cold. A circle of stones, arranged with unsettling precision, surrounded a twisted tree. The stones were marked with unfamiliar symbols, strange runes that seemed to pulse with an energy of their own. The tree in the center was unlike any other in the forest. Its bark was marked with deep scratches, as if something or someone had desperately tried to escape. Eric held up the camera, filming the scene as he described what he saw. "I'm in a clearing with a circle of stones and a central tree with scratch marks. The symbols on the stones are unsettling. They seem part of an ancient ritual." As he spoke, the whispers around him grew louder, more urgent, almost pleading. "Eric, come out. Eric." Suddenly, the whispers stopped, and absolute silence fell over the clearing. Eric felt his heart race, fear turning into tangible dread. He looked up at the tree again, and this time he saw something he hadn't noticed before. Among the scratch marks were dark stains, remnants of dried blood. The horror of what this could mean began to seep into his mind. Before he could react, the whispers returned, louder and more intense. Eric tried to move, but his feet felt rooted to the ground. He looked around frantically, searching for the source of the voices, but all he saw were shadows. The fear was palpable now, a weight in his chest that made it hard to breathe. With a superhuman effort, he managed to turn on the recorder one last time. I'm trapped in the clearing. The whispers, they're louder. Something's here. They're here." Eric's last words were cut off by a scream, a sound of pure terror that echoed through the forest. The recorder fell from his hand, continuing to record the whispers that grew louder and louder, turning into a chorus of desperate voices. When the search team found the recorder days later, they heard the whispers growing in intensity until they culminated in Eric's final scream. The clearing was deserted, with no sign of the journalist except for the recorder and the camera, which captured only dancing shadows and the oppressive darkness. The mystery of the disappearances in Pine Brook Forest continued, now with another name on the list of the missing. The town of Pine Brook was forever marked by the events of that night. Eric's stories, passed down by word of mouth, became part of local folklore. Children were warned never to enter the woods, especially at night. Adults, however skeptical, avoided the woods, respecting the power of the stories that seemed to come to life in the shadows. Time passed, but Pine Brook Woods remained a place of mystery and fear. New disappearances continued to occur, always accompanied by the ominous whispers that only the victims could hear. Each new name added to the list of the missing reinforced the legend, transforming it into a dark warning to the curious and skeptical. The local authorities, unable to explain the events, sealed off the entrance to the woods. But that did not stop the rumors from continuing to spread. The whispers in the woods became an unsolved enigma, a mystery that defied logic and reason. And so the story of Eric and Pine Brook Woods lived on, perpetuated by human fear and curiosity. And for those who heard the story, there was always a chill of fear, a sense that the forest was still watching them, patiently waiting for its next victim. The warning was clear. The next time you hear a whisper or see something out of the corner of your eye, it might just be your imagination, or maybe not.